My pastor called me the devil for asking where our church donations went. The big celebration he threw to mock me showed everyone exactly what he'd done with it. Our family had been at that church since before I could walk. My parents were married in that sanctuary. I was baptized in it. 4 years ago, the old pastor retired and a man named Vance took over, and little by little he turned the whole place into a stage with himself standing in the middle of it. Almost right away, he started a fund for a new sanctuary. He talked about that fund every single Sunday. He said God had shown him a vision of a building with 300 seats and a glass front that would catch the morning light, and that anyone who gave toward it would be blessed for it. He pushed hard, and he would read the giving numbers out loud from the front and say which families had stepped up and which ones had not. He went after the older members the hardest, the widows especially, the ones who had paid off their homes and had a little put away. He went after my mom and dad, Marlene and Dale, who had $31,000 in savings and believed every word that came out of his mouth. He was good at it too. That is the part people do not understand from the outside. He remembered your surgery. He remembered your grandkids' names. He would call on a Tuesday just to check on you and pray with you for 10 minutes on the phone. And then on Sunday, he would stand up and tell the whole room that giving was how you showed God you meant it. He built the trust first. The asking came after. By the end of that first year, there were pledge cards in the seat backs and a giving chart taped to the wall in the hallway. And he colored it in himself with a red marker after the second service. For a year, the money came in and nothing happened. No lot cleared, no plans posted, nothing out there but a sign staked into the grass beside the parking lot with a drawing of a building on it. The grass got mowed every other week by the same volunteers who always mowed it, and the sign sat out there looking like a promise nobody was keeping. I did not think much of it at first. Then one night at a church business meeting, I stood up and asked a simple question. I said, "How much have we raised so far, and when does the building start?" That was it. That was my whole crime. Vance stopped talking. He pointed his finger across the room at me and said, That right there is the devil talking." People turned around in their seats to look at me. He said, "Doubt is how Satan gets in. This young woman came here tonight to poison God's work, and I will not allow it." I said I had only asked a normal question about the money. He raised his voice over mine and said, "The devil always asks questions. The devil always wants proof. Sit down." So I sat down, because 80 people were staring at me like I had done something evil in front of them. I called him that Tuesday. I thought maybe he had misunderstood me, that he thought I was accusing him in front of everybody, and that privately we could fix it. He picked up on the second ring, friendly as anything. I said I only wanted to know the balance of the fund. There was a pause on the line, and then his voice changed into something flat I had never heard from him before. He said, "You are going to want to be careful where you take this." Then he said he had another call and hung up. That was the last normal conversation I ever had with the man. After that night, it got worse every week. He started using the word like it was my name. If I showed up on a Sunday, he would work it into the sermon somewhere. He would say, "Some of you have let doubt into your homes. Some of you are sitting next to the devil right now." Everybody knew exactly who he meant. Women who had taught me in Sunday school stopped speaking to me. People I had known for 20 years would see me in the parking lot and turn and walk the other way with their keys already in their hand. I had run the food pantry out of the back room for 6 years. 2 weeks after that meeting, a woman I trained myself called me and said the pastor felt it was better if somebody else handled it for a while. She apologized about 9 times on the phone. She still would not look at me at the funeral of a man we had both known. My own parents started pulling back. Vance told them their daughter had been taken by the enemy and that the only way to fight something like that was to give more and pray harder. So they gave more. He took a special offering one Sunday that he announced from the front was to protect this church from the spirit of doubt that had entered it. He was collecting money off of calling me the devil, and people were reaching for their wallets while he did it. I tried talking to my parents at their dining table. My dad said, "Pastor warned us you would try to turn us against him. That is exactly what the devil does." I could not win. Every reasonable thing I said proved his point for him. If I got upset, that was the devil being angry. If I stayed calm, that was the devil being clever. He had built it so nothing I did could ever look innocent. My mother started leaving voicemails asking if I had been reading anything strange. My father stopped answering when I called on Sundays. Some weeks I would sit in my car in that lot and not go in, and then go in anyway, because if I stopped coming, he would say the devil had taken me all the way, and there would be nobody left to say otherwise. One Sunday, he asked the whole congregation to stand and stretch their hands out toward me and pray for the devil to leave me. I counted 41 people standing with their arms out while I sat there in the 4th row. My mother was one of them. Afterward, she smiled at me in the hallway and said, "We will keep praying for you." He had turned me into the show, and the more he did it, the more they loved him for it. And the whole time, the building never came. 1 year of nothing became 2, then 3, then 4. The sign in the grass faded until you could barely make out the drawing on it. A few of the older members started getting restless, not because of me, but because they had given real money, and there was still nothing out there but weeds. Vance felt it. He could always feel a room, so he decided to end the doubt all at once. He announced a celebration. He called it Groundbreaking Sunday. He said the building was finally happening, and to prove it, he was bringing the builder himself to the church, so everybody could shake the hand of the man making God's vision real. He stood up front and said, "The doubters said this day would never come. Come and see for yourselves." He looked right at me when he said it. He printed it in the bulletin. He had real letters put up on the sign by the road over that faded drawing, "Groundbreaking Sunday, all welcome." He called people personally to make sure they came. He wanted a full house for it. He was so sure of himself. That was the day he planned to bury me for good. I almost did not go. My mother called me twice and begged me to come and see the truth, so I went. The sanctuary was packed. There was a sheet cake on a folding table by the door and a banner over the stage with Groundbreaking Sunday across it in gold letters. Vance preached for 20 minutes about faith beating the devil, and he pointed at me in front of everyone and said, "This one did not believe. This one called it a lie. Watch what God does to a doubter." Then he invited the builder up to say a few words about the project. The man's name was Roy. He came to the front holding a folder against his chest and looked around the room like he had walked into the wrong building. He said the pastor had called his office that week, asking him to come say a few words about the project, and he had driven out thinking the job was finally moving. But he wanted to be clear about something first. He said there was no signed contract for any building. He said no deposit had ever been paid to his company. He said he had met with the pastor one time, 3 years ago, given him a written quote, and never heard back. back. Nothing ordered. No permits pulled. No plans approved. He said, I do not know what you were told, but we were never hired. There is no project. The room made a sound I had never heard a church make. Vance talked over him and said the paperwork was in progress. Roy said, Sir, you have paid us nothing. There is no in progress. An older woman in the second row stood up and asked out loud where 4 years of building money had gone then. Vance said the funds were being managed prayerfully. She asked to see the account. He said that was the devil talking again. Then he wiped his face and lowered his voice into that wounded, holy tone everybody trusted. And he said he was ashamed to finally tell them the truth he had been protecting them from. He said the building money was gone because somebody had stolen every cent of it. He said that somebody was me. Something broke loose in my chest. For 3 years I had sat down when he told me to sit down. I had swallowed every sermon aimed at me and every whisper in that parking lot. But he was standing up there telling people who watched me grow up that I was a thief, and that was the one I was not going to let stand. He thought I would cry. He thought I would run out the side door like I always did. I was already on my feet. I got maybe 3 words out, something like, I never took, before he spun away from me and faced the congregation with both arms spread wide like he was shielding them from a fire. See, he said, the devil rises. Do not listen to her. Cover your ears and pray. And half the room did exactly what he said. People I had known since I was a little girl closed their eyes and bowed their heads and started praying out loud all at once. Dozens of voices mumbling over each other, all of it aimed at me. They were trying to bury my voice under noise so nobody could hear a word I said. Then my dad stood up. Dale pushed himself out of the pew and turned to face me and raised his hand up flat in front of him like he was blocking something dark from getting closer. Sit down, he said. His voice cut right through the praying. You have done enough damage to this family. I looked past him at my mother. Marlene had her head down and her hands folded in her lap and her lips were moving. I stood there waiting for her to look up. One look. 1 second of her being my mom instead of his. She never lifted her head. But Roy was still standing near the podium holding that folder. He was not praying. He was not closing his eyes. He was watching all of it with the face of a man trying to work out how to get back to his truck. He was the only person in that building with no reason to lie. So I turned to him and said it loud enough to carry over the praying. Did I ever contact you? He blinked at me. Did I ever have access to any of that money? Do you even know my name? Roy looked at me, then at Vance, then back at me. I have never spoken to you before today, he said. I have only ever dealt with the pastor. The praying got quieter. Some people opened one eye. Vance moved fast. He stepped in front of Roy, almost blocking him with his body, and turned to the room. Do you see what is happening right now? He said. She is manipulating this man. Satan uses innocent people as tools. This builder has no idea what he walked into. And it almost worked. I watched faces in the middle rows settle back into that comfortable place where his voice made everything all right. He was that good. He had spent 4 years learning how to run that room. I could not beat him with words. Not in his building, not on his stage, not with his microphone. He could take any sentence I said and flip it into proof that I was exactly what he called me. I needed something he could not talk around. I stepped over to Roy and lowered my voice. Did you bring any paperwork? Roy looked down at the folder. He opened it and thumbed through it. I brought the original quote I gave him, he said. It was never signed. He flipped a page. And I brought the emails where he stopped answering. I asked if I could see them. He looked at Vance for about 2 seconds. Then he handed me the whole folder. I turned around and held it up so the room could see it. My hands were shaking. My voice was not. This is the builder's original quote, I said. Dated 3 years ago this month. And these are the emails from his company to Pastor Vance. I pulled the first page out and read it out loud. We are ready to proceed once you sign the contract and submit the deposit. Please let us know how you would like to move forward. I looked up. 3 years ago. I pulled the second page. This one is 2 months later, following up on the sanctuary project. We have not received a signed contract or deposit. Please advise. I let that sit. 2 months of silence from him while the plates went around every Sunday. I turned to the third page. It was shorter than the others. This one is from a full year after the first. I said, final notice. We are closing this file as we have received no response. I lowered the paper. Every face in that room was turned toward me, and not one person had their eyes closed. 3 emails, I said. The last one closed the file 2 years ago. No contract, no deposit, no building, and he never stopped passing the plate. Vance came at me fast with both hands out, reaching for the folder. I stepped back and pulled it against my chest, and he grabbed a handful of air. People in the front row gasped. He caught himself and straightened his jacket and put his face back together. But everybody in that sanctuary had just watched a pastor try to snatch papers out of a woman's hands. Those emails do not prove anything, he said. There was a crack running through his voice now. Business dealings are between the pastor and God. How this church operates is not for public discussion. Then where is the money? I said. He kept his eyes on the congregation like I was not there. It is in a fund. The building fund is secure and accounted for. Show us. He turned and looked at me, and his jaw was set, and there was a vein moving at his temple. I do not answer to you, he said. You are right, I said. You answer to every person in this room who gave you their savings. That was when Blythe stood up. Second row, same seat she had sat in for 30 years, both hands on the pew in front of her to push herself up. White hair, glasses, a woman who had buried her husband out of that sanctuary. Her voice carried to the back wall without a microphone. I gave $6,000 to that fund, she said. My husband gave before he passed. That was our money. Money we worked for. I want to see a bank statement. Then a man 3 rows behind her stood up without saying anything. Then a woman on the far side. Then another. One by one people got to their feet, and it was nothing like when he told them to stand for prayer. This was people who were done sitting. Vance raised both hands high like he could hold the room together with his arms. The enemy is in this room right now, he said. His voice shook on the word enemy. Anyone who questions God's plan is siding with darkness. Nobody closed their eyes. Nobody prayed. The words landed on the carpet and lay there. Then Roy cleared his throat. Nobody asked him to. I want to be clear, he said. I was invited here today to celebrate a project that does not exist. I do not know why I am here. That went through the room like a wave, front to back, person to person, hands over mouths. A man near the middle stood up and said he had asked about the account 2 Christmases ago and had been told the same thing about it being managed prayerfully. A woman behind him said she had asked to join the finance committee and been told there was not one anymore. Every question anybody in that building had ever swallowed came up out of them at the same time. time. Vance stepped off the stage, not toward the congregation, toward me. He walked right up to me, close enough that I could smell his cologne and see the red in the corners of his eyes. And when he spoke, there was no microphone and no God in it at all. "You have no idea what you are doing," he said, low and flat. "You think these people care about you? They will forget this by next Sunday. I built this. You are nothing." The first 2 rows heard every word. A woman in the front pew put her hand over her heart. Blythe said loud, "What did he just say to her?" A man in the front row turned around and repeated it to the room. "He said she is nothing. He said they will forget by next Sunday. He said he built this." It moved back through the pews, repeated and passed along, until the people standing at the back wall knew what their pastor had said to a woman 3 feet in front of him. Vance's head came up. I watched him understand that they had heard him. Then the mask came back on. He stepped away from me and smiled that warm, patient smile. "I was simply telling her I forgive her," he said. Nobody moved. They had heard his real voice 30 seconds earlier, and no smile was going to make them unhear it. So he dropped to his knees on the carpet. His head fell forward and his shoulders started shaking, and the sound that came out of him was an ugly, broken sob. "I have failed you," he said. He pressed his hands together against his chest. "I have been under spiritual attack for years. This vision broke me. I made mistakes with the money. I trusted the wrong people, but I never stole from you. I love this church. I love every one of you." And I felt the room start to tilt back toward him. An older woman near the back put her hand to her mouth. A man 2 rows from the front leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. For about 1 second, I almost believed it myself. It was that good. 4 years of working that room, and he had saved his best for last. Then Blythe walked out of the second row and up to the front, and stood over him while he knelt there crying. "Then show us the account," she said. "Right now. Pull it up on your phone. Show us the balance." He wiped his face with the back of his hand. "I do not have access to it on my phone. It is through the church office. I would need to gather the records." "You run the account," Blythe said. "You told us that yourself. You stood on that stage and said you personally manage every dollar because God entrusted it to you. Pull it up or tell us the truth." "I need time," he said. "There are statements. There are receipts. It is not something I can just put on a screen in the middle of a service." 4 years is enough time," Blythe said. She did not raise her voice. She did not have to. I still had the folder. There was one more page in it I had not read yet. It was the quote itself. The whole job laid out line by line, the size and the materials and the labor and the timeline, and at the bottom in bold print, the total. I held it up so they could see the number. "The whole building was going to cost $118,400, I said. "How much has this church given to the building fund in 4 years?" Nobody answered. Then a man in the back stood up, a quiet one, the kind who comes early and helps count the offering. "I kept the books that first year, before he took it over himself," he said. "We raised $71,000 in 12 months. He stopped letting anybody see the numbers after that. 71,000 in 1 year. Then 3 more years of Sundays, special offerings, sacrificial gifts, widows on fixed incomes, my parents' savings. Nobody in that room had the numbers for the years after that, because he had made sure of it. But my parents alone put in 31,000, and Blythe 6, and you only had to look at the people standing up to know it did not stop there. The building cost 118. They had passed that before the second year was out and kept giving for 2 more. Blythe sat down in the front pew and worked it out loud, twice, like she was hoping for a different answer the second time. Not $1 had gone to a contract, a permit, a deposit, or a man with a shovel. Vance stopped crying. It shut off like a faucet. He put his hands on his knees and pushed himself up off the floor one leg at a time, and straightened his jacket and looked around the room for one face that still believed him. There was not one. "I do not have to stand here and be judged by people who would not have a church without me," he said, and he turned toward the side door the pastors used, and my dad spoke. Dale stepped out of the pew into the aisle and said one word, "Pastor." Vance stopped with his hand halfway to the handle. He did not turn around. "I told my daughter that questioning you was exactly what the devil does," Dale said. His voice broke in the middle of it. "I said that to my own child. I gave you our savings, $31,000. You looked us in the face every Sunday and lied." Vance said nothing. "You are not leaving until you answer her question," my dad said. "The one she asked 3 years ago. Where did the money go?" He pushed the handle down and stepped through the side exit, and the door clicked shut behind him. Somebody near the back said his car was already pulling out of the lot. Nobody went after it. Then the room came apart. People shouting, standing, calling after him, some of them moving toward the door. I was not watching any of it. I was watching my mother. Marlene had not moved. She was sitting in the same spot she always sat in with tears running down her face, and she finally looked up at me. Then she put her hand out. The same hand she had stretched toward me while 41 people prayed for the devil to leave her daughter. Open, shaking, reaching. I took it and sat down next to her, and she held on hard enough to hurt. "You were the only one who asked," she said. I said, "I know, Mom." The cake stayed on the folding table by the door with the plastic knife beside it, and nobody cut it.